Good evening, everybody. I'm Bob Irving, and it's an honor and a privilege to be your host tonight. I was asked by the family to oversee the celebration of Jerry Maslowsky's life, and I think the size of the turnout here tonight tells us how many people Jerry touched. We're going to start the evening off with Stacey Nattrass singing a song that was picked out by Jerry's two daughters, Kaylee and Tara. It's called Jealous of the Angels. Stacey?
Just jealous of the angels around the throne tonight.
Thank you, Stacey. You know, the hardest part of losing someone close to you is coming to grips with it. And that's what we're going to try to do tonight as we celebrate the remarkable life of Jerry Maslowsky. Jerry Maz is what I'll refer to him to most of the evening, because that's what we all call Jerry. I first met Jerry in 1991 when he came to work at CJOB, and it doesn't take very long to see if people are real. And Jerry was as real as they come, full of energy, passionate, genuine, and a big sports fan. And because of that, we connected right away. Jerry was hired specifically to oversee our sports properties at CJOB. We had made a major investment in both the Blue Bombers and the Winnipeg Jets. And Ralph Warrington, our general manager at that time, said Jerry was the only man he wanted. Ralph called him invaluable in directing our sales and marketing department. Jerry was always full of ideas. Ralph called him a promotional wizard, and he guided our radio station with all his great ideas and his energy through that period. Jerry left CJOB in 1999 to help run the Pan American Games, and we all know what a great success they were. And that's when my wife Day worked side by side with Jerry. She quickly fell under his spell, his charm, his enthusiasm. They also had occasion to work together in the ensuing years when Jerry was with the Blue Bombers. And Day and I both came to understand that a day dealing with Jerry Maz was a good day. It was a real good day. And then he joined the Bombers, and there's a bit of a backstory here. Cal Murphy in the mid-90s, when Jerry worked at CJOB, had asked Ralph Warrington to loan Jerry to the Bombers to guide their marketing and promotions. That's how highly regarded he was. But I believe that when Jerry was hired by the Bombers, he had received his dream job. The football club was at a very low ebb then, and Jerry played a significant role in selling, marketing, rebranding the Bombers. Lyle, Bauer, and Jim Bell will tell you more about that later on. His passion was always evident. He was a workaholic. He was there 7 days a week. I don't have to tell Chris that. Weekends, absolutely loved the football club. Chris, Kaylee, Tara, and Bobby, you guys were number one, but the Bombers weren't far behind, I don't think. And we used to, the media who covered the Bombers, we'd sit and watch practice every day, and one of the highlights through all those years was when Jerry would drop by, because he'd go into one of his rants. Jerry did these rants about Bomber failures of the past that had broken his heart. And he invariably came back to the 1972 West Final that the Bombers lost to Saskatchewan 27-24. Some of you are familiar with it, many of you aren't, but it was a crazy game in Winnipeg. The Bombers kind of blew it. The Riders stole the game from them. And Jerry never got over that. And we'd see him walking to us in practice, and we'd say, oh, here comes Jerry. Somebody asked him about the 1972 West Final. And Jerry would go off, and then we'd all laugh. We had so much fun with Jerry, and when Jerry was around, it was easy to laugh because he was just that kind of guy. He also had some rants about the 2001 Grey Cup game, which the Bombers lost, or he'd walk up to me in the sidelines and say, Bob, how come we can't get to the quarterback? And he'd go off for about 90 seconds, and I'd say, well, maybe next game, Jerry. Oh, okay, fine, yeah, we'll see. But why did we lose the 72 West Final? Jerry had an encyclopedic knowledge of Bomber history. I know he considered himself to be a historian of the football club, and he really was. Now, Jerry did have his flaws. He was a fan of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Who's perfect? But Jerry truly loved the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. He bled blue and gold. And what I remember most about Jerry is he cared about people. You talk to the players and the coaches from that era. They couldn't say enough about the way Jerry went out of his way to look after them. And my final thought, I guess, on Jerry would be when you saw Jerry Maz or heard his voice, the day automatically got better. I would like to, I got some texts when word of Jerry's passing came along, and I'd like to read a few of them because I think, again, they speak to the regard with which Jerry was held. This one's from Arash Madani, who works at Sportsnet. He was the Bomber Media Relations Director when Jerry was working with the club. He said, "I can't believe it, Bob. A man so passionate, so full of life, robbed of it so quickly. Jerry was one of a kind." From Ralph Warrington, "My memory bank has once again been ignited by an untimely passing of a very good person. He was enthusiasm personified. His love of his work, his family, and his friends and co-workers was remarkable indeed." Garth Butchko, "I am so sad for Maz and his family. He was a super guy." "So sorry to hear about Jerry. Please pass along my condolences. I always felt Jerry was a supporter and friend." That's from Doug Barry, who was a coach for the Blue Bombers for 3 years. And Joe Mack, who was here most recently, he said, "I saw the sad news about Jerry Maslowsky. I really liked him, thought he was a good guy. For about a year after I left, I would get a nice email from him. He was a super Bomber fan. Please tell his wife and family how much I liked him and how sorry I am for their loss." And I think those are just a few of the messages and the comments I've heard from people about Jerry Maz, and I know you've all heard the same thing. He truly, as Rash Madani says, was one of a kind, and a guy we'll never forget. Okay, there's a few people who would like to speak about Jerry, reflections on his life, and we'll start off with a great friend of his, Harvey Chochinov. Harvey?
Since his untimely death on Sunday, I find myself thinking continuously of Jerry and our decades-long friendship. Friendships are like threads we get to handpick and weave into the fabric of our lives. Their color, vibrancy, texture, and placement transform our very being into a rich tapestry, forever changed, forever brighter, forever enriched by virtue of their presence. Jerry Maslowsky was one such friend, and for that I feel eternally blessed. I first met Jerry when I was 13 years old. Even before our first encounter, I was aware of the Maslowsky mystique. His brother Kenny was known as a remarkable entertainer, and Kenny's triumph in the school musical Bye Bye Birdie with Miriam Braunstein was the stuff of legend. 45 years ago, probably about this time of year, Jerry and I showed up to audition for the Jefferson Junior High musical, Annie Get Your Gun. The moment he opened his mouth to sing, I knew for certain these things to be true. Number one, the Maslowsky musical gene pool ran deep. Number two, Jerry had something that I didn't, and that something was real talent. And three, unlike me, he had confidence and an assuredness in his ability to perform. You might say it bordered on swagger, but it fell well short of cocky or boastfulness. Jerry was simply not wired that way. Jerry's personality was a unique opposite of the outgoing, self-assured showman, and on the other hand, the reticent and gentle husband, father, businessman, and friend, happy to see others bask in the glow of center stage. In this way, he was the perfect amalgam of his parents. Like his mother's laughter, Jerry's presence could fill up an entire room. But like his father's wistful smile, he could be unassuming and completely content playing a supporting role. Music was part of the magical chemistry that drew us together. Along with our keyboard player, Michael Ryzak, Tim Fednew on saxophone, Jeff Garrity on guitar, Craig Daring on drums, later replaced by Jeff Dolovich, and me on various strings, we formed the band Special Blend. Now, the name may not be quite as iconic as, say, The Guess Who. But between the early 70s to the mid-1980s, we were one of Winnipeg's hottest groups on the wedding bar mitzvah circuit. To have Special Blend play your life cycle event, along with, say, Mooney's Catering, was the ultimate in Jewish celebratory decadence. Now, Mike and Jerry were diviners who could read the mood of a room in an instant. They would peer onto the dance floor, furtively glance at one another, and call the next tune. Most pieces were played by ear, which meant Jerry might have to remind us of the right key signature. Time to slow down meant Jerry was about to start crooning like, Frank Sinatra or Dean Martin, Billy Joel, James Taylor or Carole King. And during an instrumental interlude, Jerry might delight the crowd by inviting the Babas and Zetas, the grandmothers and grandfathers, and parents to join in on the dance floor, or on other occasions, cajole the bar mitzvah boy into finding a girl willing to dance. In Yiddish, the word for flavor is tam. But tam is far more than just taste. Real tam implicates flavors that invoke memory and tradition. And Jerry's voice had tam. When he said, "Harv, grab your violin," I knew the room was about to be swept up in a wave of nostalgia and Jewish shtick. Now, shtick is a particular kind of humor typified by the likes of Shecky Green or Henny Youngman or Rodney Dangerfield, and Jerry was the master of shtick. His humor could transport us back to the Catskills, and his voice take us to places like the Kretschma, which was a Russian nightclub that Jerry would describe through song. When you hear Russian song, do you suffer? And the next verse would describe the beautiful Natasha, whose shoulders, according to Jerry, would vibrate. And it didn't matter how many times he sang that line, he always seemed to be on the brink of uncontrollable laughter. The tune would change again, and Jerry would whisk us off to the shtetl, the small Jewish village in Eastern Europe. Cherubim, cherubim, Hava Nagila. The Rebbe Elimelech had entered the building, and no one was leaving until Jerry signaled it was time for the music to stop. In my mind's eye, all this feels like yesterday. Jerry singing, the band struggling to keep pace, the room a whirling dervish, the unforgettable wafting aroma of perspiration combined with roasted chicken and kishka. Zetas on the verge of angina. Mr. Unger pointing to his wristwatch, signaling it's time to bring out the pastry. And the music ending after a final crescendo and cymbal crash. Then applause, laughter, panting, and a mad rush as people scramble to be the first in line to fill their plates with cheesecake, schmooze torts, and any sweet delectable known to mankind. For many, many years, Jerry was a proud member of the Sarah Summers High Folk Ensemble, Winnipeg's premier Israeli folk arts dance group and performance company. So picture this. The concert hall is sold out, bursting with energy and anticipation. Those of us in the Chai Orchestra, myself included, are watching the masterful baton of Miriam Brightman, or in later years, Sam Simpkin, Shirley Goldsman, or Hillel Summers. Myron Schultz's clarinet starts to wail. This is the rabbi sequence, and one thing is for certain. The moment he walks on stage, every eye will be in Jerry. And the moment he starts to sing, everyone, without exception, will be eating out of the palm of his hand. Jerry is the singing rabbi, as the Rebbe singt. He is seated at a wooden table, surrounded by the Hasidim, the students of the Talmud. He is dressed in rabbinical garb, complete with shtreimel, or fur hat, black frock coat, beard and payas, or side locks. He is the venerable teacher, an indisputable spiritual guide. As Jerry sings out his Talmudic lessons, the Hasidim join in. The music picks up pace. It gets louder. Jerry's body is gesticulating in rhythm to the music. His arms are flailing, head bopping, feet dancing. And as the song reaches its frenzied climax, Jerry is carried off the stage on the soldiers of the Hasidim, and the concert hall explodes in laughter and applause. That kind of attention-grabbing talent was within the repertoire of my friend, Jerry Maslowsky. But he was also very capable and genuinely content to eschew the limelight. And his work, as I'm sure we will hear more about from other speakers, was all about building people up, supporting teams, working the sidelines in the service of others. In one of the last conversations I had with him last week, he spoke about his love of family. He talked about Chris, Kaylee, Tara, and Bobby, and hoped he might have a bit more time to spend at home with them. But it was not to be. The thread of Jerry's life broke far too soon. But in his time here, he transformed the fabric of my life and the life of this community into a rich tapestry, marked by joy, kindness, generosity of spirit, and love. And for that, my dear, sweet friend, on behalf of everyone gathered here today, I can only say thank you.
Beautifully said, Harvey. I think most of you know Jerry was involved with Variety Club for a good part of his life. And I'd like to call up the president of the Variety Board, Tom Daeninck, to say a few words. Tom?
Thank you, Bob. Good evening. I've had the pleasure of working with Jerry, who many affectionately called Maz, since the spring of 2014, when he became CEO of Variety. In this short time, Jerry accomplished much, and he did it with style, charisma, and class. He was a character with wit, an entertainer who could sing, dance, and play a tune on request, a gifted leader, willing to embrace any challenge with a smile and let's get her done attitude. Work didn't seem like work when you worked with Jerry. His work with Variety was far-reaching and impactful. Jerry was a man of great vision, passion, and heart. When you met Jerry, you instantly liked him. When you worked with Jerry, you had your voice heard. You saw all the little details and his big picture simultaneously. This was because Jerry had a gift for taking a task, simplifying it, and creating a finished project that was better than anyone could have imagined. If there is one theme that will resonate strongly this evening, it is Jerry Maslowsky was one of the nicest people you could ever meet. His passion was giving himself, his time, and he expected little in return. He gave tirelessly to our community in many different ways. With respect to Variety, Jerry came into the CEO position and he immediately started to make his mark. He was a man with a great vision, and that vision has laid the foundation for the organization. He touched those in the office, those on the board, donors, Variety children, and families alike. Jerry called upon Variety alumni, and with the help of volunteers, was able to host an evening with many past Variety families. This resonated with Jerry, how important Variety's function was in giving a child a childhood. These Variety kids have grown up and are now teachers, lawyers, doctors, but all of them fondly remember what Variety provided for them. Jerry's marketing skills and creativity brought the Variety name to the forefront with a successful rebranding campaign. A new mascot named Hartley was born and now visits with children in malls, hospitals, and beyond. When the Variety Gold Heart Pin featured a minion, Jerry decided to bring those minions to life by ordering mascots and training volunteers to engage with children and their parents at every opportunity. That year, pin sales hit an all-time record. Earlier this year, after months of collaboration between Jerry, his dear friend Louis Treppel, and a team of Variety volunteers and staff, an unforgettable gala evening was born. Jerry's idea to let people have some good old-fashioned fun under the big top resulted in the most successful gala evening Variety has ever had. Jerry had actually been with Variety decades ago, flaunting his talents as a volunteer entertainer on the telethons that were held each year on CKND. We have footage of a young Jerry, circa 1980s, mullet and all, and boy, is it golden. Jerry always seemed to have a smile on his face. That smile was contagious, as he captivated you with a funny line. It was Jerry's desire to see every kid smile. He created a new motto for variety: any child, any need, every day. For Jerry, the motto was also followed up by a statement: variety is not the cause, the kids are the cause, variety is the solution. Jerry instilled this mandate. The charity in itself is only important because it is the means to assist children achieve their full potential. Jerry lived the motto every day. When he was with the kids, he became not only their supporter, but more importantly, their friend. He asked them questions and was interested in their answers. I recall one meeting he had with a variety family. The young boy showed interest in the piano that was nearby. Jerry took the time to teach him how to play chopsticks on that piano. As the child's face lit up with his success, both the parents began to cry. They had never seen this type of expression from their son before. Jerry had connected with that child and gave that child the gift of music, and this inspired Jerry to connect with more and more children. He believed in the kids, and the kids believed in Jerry. You can see it in every picture taken of him with variety kids. He truly loved them and variety. That love was present in the office and in the day-to-day work done by staff and volunteers for variety. His sports background instilled a culture of teamwork and created another Jerryism: teamwork makes the dream work. We all love Jerry. We will think of him every day. His love of the kids will live on in the memories Jerry made at countless variety events. On a personal note, I will miss Jerry deeply. I'm a better person for knowing Jerry, and I'm honored to have had the opportunity to work closely with him for the past couple of years. Jerry always used to say we were destined to be a great team, thrown together like the cartoon Tom and Jerry. To Chris, Tara, Kaylee, and Bobby, know Jerry touched so many people in our community, and his legacy will live on forever in our hearts. Know that you will remain a big part of the Variety family and can count on all of our support in the weeks and months ahead. Thank you, Jerry, for making a difference in the lives of Variety kids and for all of us at Variety.
Well, as I said, Jerry Maz loved the Winnipeg Football Club, and I can't think of anybody better to tell you about how much he meant to the Winnipeg Football Club than the man he worked with for close to a decade when they were over on Maroons Road, Lyle Bauer. Lyle?
Well, thank you very much. Now, I have to apologize in advance for my voice, so you have to pay attention, right? So, when I was sitting down and thinking about Jerry, I thought about, first off, the Bombers. And, we were in the Bombers in the early 2000s, and the staff had to bring their own toilet paper. They had to bring their own pens, pencils, everything. It was an unbelievable group that was there to keep that damn football team on the field. And, it goes without saying, and arguably, maybe Doug Brown, Milt Siegel, and some others may have objections to this, but Jerry Maslowsky might have been the best damn money I ever spent on that football team. There's no question Jerry was a marketing genius. I mean, his ideas just oozed out of him. He always had something happening. Oh, I'm here, oh, I'm there. He drove me nuts some days. But you know what? It always came from the right place. And so I sat down, and I'm so honored to be here to be asked to speak about him. two words in the mind: passion and pride. You know, outside of Bombers, Jerry loved absolutely everything. He loved helping people and making a difference in their lives. From his performing arts as we've heard, and I saw some of those, by the way, to his philanthropic activities and the charities and variety, to his love of the Blue Bombers, and most of all, his family. And yeah, the Bombers were, it depends whether they won or lost. You know, he was always a great entertainer. There's no question about that. He so enjoyed the stage with his family, sharing the stage with his family, and bringing joy to the lives of others in the audience. Now think about that for a minute. Great performers let you pick a moment of time and forget about all your troubles, your job, your issues, and then let you sit back and have a happy moment. Those are what great performers do, and Jerry Maslowsky was a very good one at doing that. Now, that was not only restricted to the big stage. I had many performances in my office. When I was having a crappy day, and he knew it, and he would tie into something or crack a joke and make me laugh my butt off. And I'm saying I always thank him for that. So I remember Jerry for the Bombers, and without Jerry Maslowsky, what he did in the early 2000s, you may not have a football team. We had a very, very dedicated group, including Jim Bell, who was bound determined, and that football team was going to have some success on and off the field. No, we didn't win the Grey Cup in 2001 or 2007, but in spite of that, with Jerry's help, we brought pride back in the organization on and off the field. We won more games than we lost. We went to the playoffs. We hosted one of the best Grey Cup games ever, and we went to the dance twice. And I've never forgiven that damn Kevin Glenn for breaking his arm in the instant final in Toronto. But Jerry was there. But I'm telling you, there's another side to Jerry about the Bombers. So, game day. Now, who wants to talk about a cat on a hot tin roof on game day? Jerry would be at his window watching warm-up, and he'd be rocking back and forth, and rocking back and forth. And he always had his chin. He was always going like this with his chin. But come game time, Jerry was on the sideline, making sure everything went right. But I guarantee you, he felt every hit, every play, every drop pass, and every touchdown that happened on that field. Some games, he looked like he had been out there for 4 quarters. I actually tried one time, Bob, you made me aware of this. I was so worried about Jerry, I tried to put him on the 9-game injured list. And that's one we had done for the season. His family, I can't tell you how many hours we spent in the offices on there, 7 days a week, talking about our families and our kids. From the challenges of first-time drivers, and all 3 of you know what I'm talking about, to the fabulous accomplishments by Kaylee, Tara, and Bobby. They were his greatest source of pride, and he was so proud of the family that he and his lifelong partner Chris, had built. And I think that is a true testament of one of the greatest things that Jerry and Chris have done. Jerry and I also shared many of our challenges. And Unfortunately, I got to serve some of his most recent ones. But from my standpoint, and for the greatest challenges I had with my own bout with cancer, he was there to support me in my battle, and he was there and very instrumental in the creation of the Never Alone Foundation. Many ideas and plans for the foundation came from his great creativity. And the Never Alone Foundation continues today to support families and patients in their fight against cancer because of much of the groundwork that Jerry Maslowsky put forward on his volunteer time. And I'm forever indebted to him for that. So, we all know that our time on this earth is short. We only have so long to make our mark and create a legacy. It's our legacy that gives us immortality through the memories and the minds of others. You always wonder why. Why does a person like this taken from us? And at this time, it never seems right, it never seems fair. And Jerry's case, it came much, much too soon and too fast. So, the only explanation I can render something like that is that God needed to make changes on his roster of angels on very short notice. And like any good general manager, the GM, like the GM of a football team, they call upon the best talent available regardless of circumstance. And Jerry undoubtedly was one of the best. And I know that that is the reason he's not with us today. There's a phrase by Paul St. Spear, and one that we hold very dearly as a mantra from the Never Alone Foundation. It says, as one person, I cannot change the world, but I can change the world of one person. Now think about that for a minute as you think about a friend, father, son, and husband Jerry. Think about the joy his performances brought to the lives of so many. Think about the difference his great work made in the lives of the children supported by the Variety Club. Think about his tireless work on so many boards and charitable organizations. Think about the example that he and Chris have set for their children and their grandchildren in the future. Jerry not only changed the world of one person, he helped to change the world of all people in Winnipeg and Manitoba. I'd be remiss without a message to Kaylee, Harvey, Sarah, and Chris, and the entire family. Your father, husband, brother, son was and is so special in so many ways. I see the character in Bobby, Kaylee, and Tara, and I know that he's so proud, Chris, of what he's done, of what the children did together. And he's looking down and saying, I've done a very good job as a man, sorry. Jerry, my friend, will be sorely missed by so many as represented with this huge audience. I know you're looking down and probably somewhat embarrassed by all the unbelievable things that have been said about you, but it is you. We love and miss you, and we'll never ever forget you. Now, I was laying in bed last night thinking, man, how am I going to sit this down for 5 or 6 minutes? Right? I probably didn't. But there was a message in to me. Not by Facebook, not by Twitter, not by anything else, not by iPhone letter. It was a message in my head, and it had Jerry Maslowsky written all over it. It says, by the way, Bauer, it's Banjo Bull with him. Take the Bombers by 7 and Bull Bombers. What's up, brother?
Thank you, Lyle. My guess is that as Jerry rallies and inspires the troops in heaven, he brings up the 72 West final. Another man that Jerry worked closely with, and I mean closely, arm in arm, for many years with the Blue Bombers, and I think it's fair to say became one of Jerry's best friends, Jim Bell.
To Chris, Kaylee, Bobby, Tara and family and all these friends here tonight, I must start by saying that I struggled with knowing where to begin tonight. I'm sure I tore up my notes as I started 6 or 8 times, but I've settled on this, and I want to pay tribute to our friend. Tonight I'd like to tell you about my friend Jerry. The Jerry I came to know for almost 15 years. I first met Jerry in the spring of 2002, and as I remember, he was in the room with Lyle when they interviewed me for finance position with the football club. And my first recollection was Jerry was very engaging, very personable, as you all know him. And after I was hired, Jerry and I got to know each other quickly. And it was largely due to us trading memories of the team that we grew up loving and now working for, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Jerry grew up in Garden City. I wasn't far away. I grew up in the West End. And it seemed we had all the same memories. And when I would tell a Bomber story, Jerry always knew the end. He always knew the end. And Bob and Lyle, I don't want to go off script tonight. I have it here. One in particular was 1972 Western Final. And I have to plead guilty on something here. We shared that story, and I thought, wow, this guy can replay the whole fourth quarter. Those of you that remember it, he could replay the kicking in and out of the end zone back in 1972 when we lost that game to Ron Lancaster and George Reed and a very good football team. But that had an enormous impact on Jerry. And I remember, I must confess, there would be times where we'd be in a room trading Bomber stories, and I'd either wink at somebody or give somebody an elbow, and I'd say, watch this. Jerry, this person wants to know a little about the 1972 Western Final. Can you help him out? He did it like the game was the day before. I never got tired of hearing it, but Jerry, yeah, I'm sorry I made you tell that story so many times. I think it's safe to say, like most young football fans growing up in Winnipeg, Jerry and I both dreamt one day of wearing the Bomber uniform, the blue and gold. Those dreams didn't happen, but I found out early how proud and passionate, that word has been used often tonight so appropriately, how passionate Jerry was as an employee of the football club. He had incredible passion for the club. It was infectious, it was magnetic. And he did his job so diligently over the 15 years he was with the club. I remember as we were getting to know each other in 2002, 2003, and this went on for a number of years, but we'd often try to stump each other with Bomber trivia. But I met my match with that man. From the 60s era, the 70s and on, it seemed Jerry knew everything about his team. I didn't even get a chance to finish the question most times, and he knew the answer. He knew the names, he knew their numbers, he knew their positions. He would memorize plays. I think he actually knew the players' shoe sizes. And as his knowledge extended throughout the league, he was a true, passionate, and knowledgeable fan. Allow me to fast forward and further to trivia. We were getting ready to shut down Canada Stadium before we made our move over to Investors Group Field. And Canada Stadium was a place of character. It was a football cathedral with so many precious memories. We were days away from packing up. We were all, as a staff, getting ready to move out. And there was excitement, but there was equal sadness. And I said to Jerry, you know, we have to do this right. I went and I got a ball from our equipment manager, Brad Foddy. I had Tara. You remember Tara? Got a camera. It was a cold, cold day. Didn't matter. Went out to the field for one last time. So for trivia purposes, please let the records know I threw him a wobbly ball. And let it be known, Jerry Maslowsky caught the last pass ever thrown at Canada Stadium. And he was very proud of that. It wasn't a very good throw. Lyle can attest to that. He saw me throw so sometimes. My first real close-up look at Jerry's passion for the Bombers was standing beside him on the sidelines on game days in 2002. Wow. We did this, I think, every game once certain duties were done. He had more than I did. There was no one more passionate, no more passionate fan than Jerry that I came across. And he was very vocal, to say the least. If things weren't going particularly well, he'd voice his frustration, including at the referees. And that's when I kind of distanced myself a little bit. I didn't want to get a 15-yarder on behalf of the club. And he did everything in his power to get the fans going. And it seemed that as the game would go on at Canada Stadium and now at Investors Group Field, of course, our fans would get further engaged. In the third and fourth quarter, how many do you remember this, with Jerry going up and down the sidelines, going like this? Just getting and he was effective. The fans bought in. We stood beside each other on the sidelines, and we stood beside each other through thick and thin off the field. I admired his loyalty. I could trust him implicitly with anything. Whether he was around staff day to day or out in public representing the organization, Jerry was an ambassador for the Blue Bombers. He did it with pride. Lyle used the pride word, so true. And with what I call unparalleled energy. I witnessed this time and time again, and personally I fed off of it. I was only too proud to develop a close bond with this man over the time that I got to know him. He was creative, as evidenced by the marketing campaigns and the slogans that he would come up with, and he was a perfectionist. He took these things very, very seriously. And there are two that come to mind, and I didn't see the program until I walked in tonight, and I see on the back there's that unfinished business. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that arose after 2001. I wasn't with the club yet, but the team had lost the Grey Cup game, and I believe it was Jerry who came up with unfinished business and wanted to make sure that we finished it up in 2002, and we often reminded him of that slogan over the years to poke fun at him. The other one that I liked, and I believe the one that Jerry was the most proud of, was Jerry would say, Bomber football doesn't last only 4 quarters. It lasts a lifetime. And he used it often. These few examples I share with you about Jerry, there are so many stories and memories. I'd love to trade a few with you later, if you so choose. I know many of you have your own special memories, and if you're anything like me, you've replayed them in your mind over and over again in the last several days. But let me share a little bit about the man. We know him as Maz, and I'm going to change it a little bit and say Jerry the man. Yes, the football club was important to him, a real passion, but there was so much more to him. He was a family man. We often shared stories about our families. As a matter of fact, before I met Chris and the children, I think I said to you yesterday, I already knew you. Our wives became friends, and I know our daughter, Oksana, thinks the world of Tara. Oftentimes, whether it be late in the evenings in the office or over a coffee somewhere, this was the main theme of conversation. It was family first, and then football. He loved his wife, Chris, and was so proud of his 3 children. And one of Jerry's, in the mornings when I get to work, if I got in before him, 4 mornings out of 5 or 3, I'd get an email, and it would be one word with a question mark. Coffee? And he would always stop at Tim's. He would always stop at Tim's. Jerry was a listener, a gifted listener. He listened to learn, and he listened in a way that always respected the other person. And he gained so much respect as a result. He never pretended to know everything about everything. My friend Jerry was not just an ambassador for the club, but I believe he was an ambassador and example of how we should live. Put others' interests ahead of your own. Jerry was about community. He understood the true value of building trusting and loyal relationships. I know no one more loyal as a friend than Jerry Maslowsky. As I said earlier, it was a privilege to work alongside him, even on those very few bad days. There weren't many with the Winnipeg Football Club. Yesterday, at the graveside, the 23rd Psalm was read. Many of you, all of you know it. And one of the lines speaks of, surely goodness and kindness will follow me. Well, yesterday, I must tell you, when I was driving home, I was thinking of this, and it was so appropriate when we think of Jerry. He displayed goodness and kindness freely as part of his daily walk, and it was on display wherever he was around people. And by the number of people here tonight, it's obvious Jerry made quite an impact with his life, and he impacted me. And I believe it's because he exemplified the qualities of goodness, kindness, loyalty, and respect in a world that needs more of it. And he did it freely, and he did it oh so well. Jerry, I can't help but think, I was daydreaming the last couple of days. The word surreal has been used a lot. I've done a little daydreaming, and I can't help but think that you will have connected and will be connecting with some loved ones that have passed on before you, as well as some that have passed on from the Bomber family, some very good people. And one that came to my mind is Coach Richard Harris. And I believe it would play out something like this. Richard will be there to greet you, and he'll give you one of those 10-minute hugs. But once that's over, I know what you're going to do. You're just going to pepper him with football questions. And you'll share a few laughs. In closing, Jerry, I wished many times over the last few days that I could have another coffee with you. It was my turn to buy. I miss our conversations. I miss your laughter. You were simply a special friend. And if I may, there's a verse in Proverbs that I've actually always appreciated, and you've caused me to think of it several times in the last few days. Proverbs 18:24 reads, "One who has unreliable friends soon comes to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother." Jerry, you were a reliable friend, and although I never had a brother, and perhaps it took me this week to realize that as I had the privilege to walk with you over the last 15 years as a friend, you defined friendship, and frankly, you're the brother I never had. And I thank you for that. You said that Bomber football didn't last 4 quarters, it lasts a lifetime. And you're right. Please know your friendship will stay with me for a lifetime. And it seems to me that the best way to honor you would be to encourage each and every one of us here tonight. Let's carry on the goodness and kindness that you exemplified every day. Let's be a loyal friend to someone and practice putting ourselves second. And as a result, this world will be a much better place. Jerry, I love you. Until we meet again, rest in peace.
Jerry, of course, made many close friendships and relationships with the football club, and another gentleman with great memories of his time with Jerry is Jeffrey Bannon. Jeffrey, come on up and say a few words about our friend.
How do you honor a man that has given you so much? How do you pay your respects to a man that took the time out of his life to share his experiences, his successes, his failures, and his outlook on life, both inside and outside of work? How do you say thank you in a few pages of text? The answer is you can't. You want to, but you can't in just a few short words. As Jerry was far more than a boss, he was a friend, an ally, a mentor, and a father figure. He was my icon. And with Jerry, you just didn't get Jerry. You got the whole family. It was an all or none type of deal. I quickly fell in love with Jerry and the family. It was at various events when we worked together with the club, I became in awe of Jerry. He was smooth on the microphone, and he worked a room like no one else. He knew everyone. Everyone knew him. And he spoke with such ease, no matter if we were speaking to a large room or a group of fans. He was smooth, effortless. And all the while, I'm sitting there in awe, admiring every second. And then I remember the day when he handed me the microphone. He said, "Your turn." I wasn't ready. He said, "Yes, you are." I remember walking up to the microphone thinking, I have big shoes to fill and pressure. And I remember him sitting, eating, watching me, and smiling. Jerry had the coolest office. He had a couch, and he had candy. Oftentimes, it was used for candy and then the couch. But most importantly, he would listen. He would never judge. He would never criticize. He would always encourage. I remember I used to ask Deborah to go in his office for some frivolous reason when he wasn't there, just to sit in his chair. It was almost like when Captain Kirk left the Enterprise and you could sit there. He knew I was there because the chair was never put back to the right height. His candy was gone. For those of you that, you guys just left the black jelly beans. That wasn't fair. But the reality is, when you were in Jerry's office, you felt protected. I felt at home. I felt where I belonged. And he gave you that comfort. He gave you direction, yet he allowed you to learn. He allowed you to be you. He allowed you to grow. And it was passion that made me want to achieve more. Whether it was to sell more apparel, tickets, it was his love and desire for the team. He loved this team more than, you've heard from Lyle, you've heard from Jim. I've never met a man love the Bombers so much. But yet, even more than the Bombers as a team, he adored the athletes, all of them, no matter if we'd win or lose. Okay, he didn't like you that much if we lost sometimes. But it doesn't make a difference. If you're a Hall of Famer, a rookie, some guy that just got called up, he treated everyone with respect, integrity, and a level of professionalism, and he willing to help every single person. He knew a guy who knew a guy who knew a guy who knew a guy. I remember I had a friend that got into the furniture business, and someone would walk down the office, the hallway, and he says, I don't have a mattress. I get a call on the phone, he goes, someone needs a mattress. It's that willingness to help. It's that willingness to be there 24/7. He wanted the team to win so much. He wanted the team to win for its fans, for the alumni, for the corporate community. He valued those relationships more than anyone would know. He truly admired every single person a part of the Winnipeg Football Club. Coming to the football club midway through the 2000s, I still remember the interview. I interviewed with Jim, Jerry, and a gentleman named Jeff Newman. I knew I had Jerry right away because he turned his chair to the other side and was on his phone. I'm like, got him. Jim was a little tough. Newman, I still don't know about Newman. But from that moment on, he taught me a lot of things. He taught me a lot about pro sports. When you start working for a pro sport franchise, you walk in with blinders on. You walk in not realizing it's a different world. Someone would say something, someone would type something, someone would broadcast something. Jerry never got upset. He explained it to me this way. He said, everyone has a role. Imagine a wheel. Everyone has a spoke. It starts with the fans, then the athletes, the officials, the media, the corporate community, the amateur football community, and the admin staff that we work here. Everyone has an equal part in this equation, and everybody has a job to do. It's tough sometimes when the team doesn't win, but I'll tell you this, I've never seen a man so happy when we won. Jerry explained that in the game of football, once again, you have to work together as a team. And success is understanding that everyone is in this together, no matter what part of the wheel they're on. And this was evident as he was adored by all. And the showing of support that we've seen through the media, social media, has been a result of who Jerry was. And speaking of that, he had a lot of nicknames. And you would realize that when you follow him from place to place. In different circles, they call him different names, and you heard some of them today. I knew him as Jerry. Then I heard Jer. Then I heard Maz. Then I heard Uncle Jay. Then I heard Papa Jay. They were all different circles, and they all treated him with the utmost respect. He would walk into a CFL league office, CFL Congress meeting, the entire room would wait for what Jerry would say. They waited on every single word that he said. I almost threw him out of a van once. True story. Traveling back from a Chamber of Commerce meeting in Kenora. Oh, it gets better. And if anyone has ever traveled in a vehicle for a period of time with Jim and Jerry, they know what I'm talking about. As these two were a sideshow to themselves, they would impersonate hockey announcers and commentators. And I must admit, I'm a Leaf fan with them, so we got along really well. But you have to imagine Jim doing his Don Cherry, Jerry doing his Howie Meeker. Kenora's what, 2 hours? I often thought to myself, how slow would I have to slow down the vehicle, open both doors, and push them out without them getting hurt? Alas, it was comic gold. At least haven't won since I've been born. And I was not born in 1972, so I won't talk about that either. But it was a history lesson. We heard how he was an avid historian of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. He also loved his Toronto Maple Leafs. And I still would catch myself when players' names are brought up. He adored these teams. Jerry taught me the value of separation between work and family. He also taught me the value of family. And at the end of the day, your family and friends will always be there, in good and bad times. He lived and breathed that. He loved his family so much. He glowed when he talked about them. He loved you so much. I visited Jerry last week in the hospital. We talked about football. I think I pissed him off because I talked about the Vikings in the beginning. But then when I mentioned the Bombers, he gave me that little wink. He knew they were going to win. I'd like to thank the Bombers and the Gold Eyes as being on the other side with Jerry, planning many events. What you have done with the decals, the chalk on the mound, the tribute on TSN were first class. And I know Jerry probably would have put up a fuss, probably would not have wanted it, but at the end of the day, he would have done it himself. He would have been humbled and honored. The last thing we talked about was how he wanted to ensure that his family was taken care of. He was unsure of his future, and all he cared about was his family. He said, "Jeffrey, I want my family to be taken care of." I'll never forget that conversation, because then he said he was hungry. He wasn't concerned about himself. He was concerned about his family. In remembering Jerry, smile. Help someone out. Do something for someone. Be better today than you were yesterday. Continue to make a difference in our community and the lives of others, no matter how small or grand the gesture is. Jerry, I can speak for everyone in this room and those that aren't here. We're thinking about you. We miss you, we love you, and we'll never forget you. We love you, my friend.
Well, we've heard a lot about Jerry's association with the football club and with variety, but Jerry was also a terrific entertainer. Going back to the days of the hollow mug. Does anybody remember the hollow mug? I'd like to call up his sister, Debbie Maslowsky, to say a few words.
Thanks, Bob. First thing I have to say is, wow, would my parents flip if they knew Bob Irving was emceeing this? You were like part of our family. You were on the radio. What? They can adjust that sort of thing. I am the luckiest woman in the room. Whew. I am Jerry Maslowsky's sister, Debbie. I'm also lucky to be Kenny Maslowsky's sister. And Kenny, of course, my brother who's here from San Francisco, and I'm speaking on his behalf and on behalf of our mother, of course. We thank you for being here, for the overwhelming outpouring of love and support, for the care and feeding of our family, both literally and figuratively. And a personal thanks to my colleagues and my friends, Gary Hale of Avant Pro, who's doing all the AV for us tonight, and of course David Chisda from the RBC Convention Centre, Winnipeg, and the wonderful staff here at the Convention Centre. Tonight we are here to celebrate the life and legacy of our incredibly wonderful brother, Jerry. I first met Jerry in 1962. Kenny met him first in 1958. Don't worry, I'm not gonna go year by year. Jerry started out exactly how you all grew to know him. He was an adorable baby, a sports fiend teenager, and a groovy platform boot and puka shell wearing 20-something. Michelle remembers always joking around, loved to laugh and have fun, entertaining, caring, charismatic, and respectful. We all attended the I.L. Peretz Folk School, which was a Jewish parochial school, elementary school, then Jefferson Junior High, and Garden City Collegiate. Around age 12, Jerry's theatrical career was kicked off when he played one of the kids in The King and I at Rainbow Stage. He was only 12 years old, and his hair was brown, and my sister had to dye it jet black for that role. The next year, he played one of the Lost Boys in Peter Pan at Rainbow Stage. He was only 13. Of course, I would not be Jerry's sister if I didn't mention that the Rainbow Stage fundraiser encore is on September the 14th. There is an audience. Jerry, of course, played all the principal roles, as Harvey mentioned, in all of the school musicals, and at about age 16, he started a long career at the Hollow Mug. Yes, Bob, we remember the Hollow Mug. It was a dinner theater at the International Inn, the hotel out by the airport. And he started at around age 16. He was in The Sound of Music. I think that was the same show Kenny started in as well. Over the years, Jerry did over 100 shows at the Hollow Mug. I know we have some friends here from the Mug. About the same time he started at the Mug, he was a featured singer-dancer with the Sarah Summer High Folk Ensemble. And he had his band, Special Blend, as Harvey already mentioned, Harvey, Michael Ryzak, Tim, Craig, Jeff, all kinds of friends, with whom he had remained dear friends. And that's the same Dr. Harvey Chochinov, who was instrumental in guiding Jerry and us through these last very few weeks. The band was well known at the time for playing, indeed, every bar mitzvah and wedding around. I too joined Chai and the Hollow Mug, performing in shows with Jerry, and around that time, Jerry and I started performing together as a duo, known, thanks to the Chai Emcee, Mr. Lyle Smorden. He referred to us as the Jewish Donnie and Marie. We would do 4 shows a night at the Israel Pavilion at Folklorama with Chai, and then 4 shows of our own as well. And I remember one year, I think it was in the early 80s, we finished our 1 a.m. final show at the Israel Pavilion on a Saturday night. We went home for about 3 hours to have a little sleep, and then very early the next morning we hopped in a van heading for Saskatoon to do their version of Folklorama called Folk Fest at the Jewish Pavilion. We felt like rock stars, except that we were driving our own van, rented, and my mother made us the sandwiches. We had our own band, our own musicians came with us, Sheldon Laveman, Marshall Miller, and Hillel Summer. Another dear friend, Dr. Hillel Summer, instrumental in Jerry's care over the last few weeks. We performed the next few nights at that festival in Saskatoon, and upon arrival, I wasn't actually feeling that great, possibly from doing 8 shows a night at the Israel Pavilion a few nights before for a week. We did the first 3 shows, and we still had 5 more to go that same night, because the Israel Pavilion closed for the Sabbath on Friday, so they squeezed in 2 nights of shows into 1 night. So my throat was starting to really hurt, and I was having a hard time getting any sound out. And of course, we were at the Jewish Pavilion, so someone found me a very good ear, nose, and throat doctor who was volunteering there. It's got to be some benefits. This doctor took me into the kitchen, and he looked down my throat with the back of a teaspoon. Yep, you have an infection, and here's a prescription for you. That wasn't the first or last time my brother saved me. He got someone who rushed out, filled the prescription, had somebody take me back to the hotel, and he did the last 5 shows himself, singing both parts. Jerry, of course, as we know, had 2 great loves of his life since he was a child. One was sports, and the other entertainment. Neither one a great solid basis for any great fortune. And doesn't really fit into what most people would call a normal 9-to-5 weekday schedule. But these two industries filled and fueled him. Kenny and I were, one of the stories we were thinking of just today actually, is when we were getting all excited to watch our one black and white television on Saturday nights, what we were gonna watch. We were gonna watch Jackie Gleason, or I don't know, you said Disney, but I think that was still Sunday, but we were trying to find things, we were getting all excited, and then we'd hear duh, 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 duh. Jerry was lying in front of that TV watching Hockey Night in Canada before we even could decide what we were gonna watch. When Jerry's personal baseball and football playing days dwindled somewhat as he got older, he spent virtually all of his time outside of school and later outside of work time doing music. Somehow in between working all day and doing shows at the Hollow Mug in the evenings, which by the way for Jerry and some of you who remember, Jerry, he would work from 9 to 5. He would go to the Hollow Mug for a rehearsal that started at 6, from 6 to 10 to 8. At 8 o'clock, the show he was in at the time started. He would do a show at 8 o'clock, and in those days we did 2 shows. There were audiences for 2 shows. He did a show at 8 o'clock and a show at 11 or 11:45, went home and started all over again. And Jerry was introduced to his wonderful wife, Chris, by one of his fellow musicians and Chris's cousin, Brian Blonsky. It takes a special person to understand this kind of schedule, and Chris was there all the way. My husband Arthur knows a little bit about that kind of schedule from time to time, but nothing like Jerry's schedule. As the great philosopher Irma Bombeck once said, people shop for a bathing suit with more care than they do a husband or wife. The rules are the same. Look for something you'll feel comfortable wearing and allow for room to grow. Chris was that person for Jerry, with lots and lots of love mixed in. Jerry followed our parents' example with an undeniable commitment to his commitments. Whether he was doing promotions with what was then CKND or CGOB or the Pan Am Games, in his role with the Winnipeg Football Club, helping other organizations like the Never Alone Foundation or his fairly recent home with Variety, the children's charity, Jerry was the most dependable, creative, most nurturing, and most committed team player. Of course, Jerry brought his artistic side to all he did, especially when it came to putting together jingles or promotions. He was always so excited to send us the jingle or promotion before it was happening so we could listen to it. We all know of Jerry's deep and long-lasting love of the Winnipeg Football Club, and it started as a kid. My parents didn't really go to the games as they worked 7 days a week, but CGOB was always on in our house, and he did manage to go to games with some friends, and he loved going with our dear family friend Norm Galtzman. They're laughing now. Jerry loved telling the story when he went with Norm to the football game, and they were so excited and engrossed in the car on the way there, neither of them paid attention to where they were parking the car. They would get out of the car, go watch the game, come out, realize they didn't know where they parked, and they would wait for the people to leave until they saw the car in the parking lot. And then we didn't have things that beeped and burped to find your car then. Once in a while, Jerry would take our mother with him to a game, though he'd become quite embarrassed when our little Jewish mother yelled and swore like a sailor at the games. It was also a wee bit of an issue as our mother was from Leader, Saskatchewan. Even then, the rivalry of the two teams could get heated in our house, though our mom was really true blue. Not only a special husband, father, brother, and friend, but Jerry was one of the most loving and committed sons. When our father passed away about 9 years ago, he stayed in the house with our mother for a few nights so she'd feel safe and never alone. And that was especially difficult for her after nearly 60 years of marriage. When our mother moved out of our family home into a condo, he stayed with her for a few nights so she'd feel safe and never alone. When our mother moved out of her condo into assisted living, he stayed with her for a few nights so she'd feel safe and never alone. And when she moved into a personal care home, I had to tell him that he did not need to stay overnight, and that was very hard for him. Jerry was my maid of honor at our wedding. And one of my favorite, very Jerry stories was when I was pregnant with our now 13-year-old daughter, Sarah. My husband, Arthur's last name is Cohen. And many people say Cohen as a one-syllable name, Cone. And a few weeks prior to our due date, Jerry would have one of his kids call our house and leave a message. First one was Kaylee. Hi, Auntie Debbie. Is ice cream there? Cohen. And all I could hear was Jerry giggling in the background. Click. Then Bobby phoned. Hi, Auntie Debbie. Is snow there? Jerry giggling. Hang up. And then, of course, Tara. Hi, Auntie Debbie. Is pine there? Click. With Variety, the children's charity, Jerry's varied skills really landed. Variety was started by a group of entertainers who cared for kids. Jerry wanted to focus on those roots, give back to the community, and take care of the kids. He was a fixer, as Chris says. In such a short time there, he brought a variety of doers together. He creatively put together partnerships with other nonprofits, with sports teams, with community leaders, with volunteers. He was so incredibly proud of Variety's story, the documentary that was done for the MTS Stories from Home. If you needed something or someone, as Jeffrey just said, you called Jerry, and he'd say, call this person, call that person. He was a conduit for connecting people, for jobs, for information, for partnerships. One of the many things I learned from Jerry, as hokey as it may sound, is the old idiom, you catch more flies with honey than with vinegar. Basically, and forgive my vernacular, and Sarah, don't ever use this word, you don't need to be an asshole to get things done. My whole life, especially my work life where Jerry and I shared colleagues, I was, and I still am, constantly proud when people say, what a nice guy, what a considerate guy, what a helpful guy. Not sure you can ask for more than that as a reputation. That's how Jerry was so good at creating partnerships. A challenge put to us by our dear friend Bill Wiseman, who gently led our family through Jerry's memorial service, suggested we try to follow in Jerry's footsteps, as has been suggested here tonight as well. Continue his work. Be a mensch. Be a person of integrity and honor, as he was throughout his short life. Family was of utmost importance. He loved and was so very, very proud of his children, as you've heard tonight. As are we very, very proud of his children, and we love them, and Chris, and we always will. We are a family. We are all brokenhearted, but I am still the luckiest gal in this room because Jerry is my brother.
Jewish Donnie and Marie, eh? Jerry never told me that. We've heard a lot about Jerry's association with the football club and variety and his entertaining talents. Maybe not enough emphasis, certainly for me, on how Jerry worshiped his family. They were first and foremost. And our final speakers tonight will be his beautiful daughters, Kaylee and Tara.
As a lot of people have already said tonight, how do you put a lifetime of memories into one little speech? It's impossible. And like other people have said, I've gone back and forth in the last couple days, and finally I just had to stop. I just had to do it because I could write a book, and I'm sure a lot of people would say the same thing. So this is it. So a lot of people have asked me, how could you possibly speak at your own father's memorial service? And it's true, this is by far the most difficult speech I will ever have to give in my entire life. But my dad was the strongest person that I knew, and I needed to do this for us and for him, and I know that he would have been proud. I want to thank everyone for their support over this past week. It's made our entire family so proud to see how many lives that Dad has touched. And for someone who never wanted to take credit for anything, it's overwhelming how this community has come together to recognize and honor him. He would be humbled and probably embarrassed to know that every media outlet in the city has done a story about him over the last couple days. And I know that he would think it's absolutely ridiculous that we had to rent out the largest venue in the city to hold this service. We specifically want to thank the CFL, the Winnipeg Goldeyes, the Blue Bomber Organization, Never Alone Foundation, and Variety, the children's charity in Manitoba, for their overwhelming support. Thank you to all of those who have already made donations to Never Alone and Variety, who sent cards and flowers to the house, and a ton of food to get us all through this week. And thank you to all of those who helped us plan this event so quickly. I know there's so many other people to thank, but the list would go on and on and on. Dad's been called a lot of things over this past week. A spark plug, a community figure, a business executive, a marketing whiz, and he truly was all of those things. But he was also a loving and selfless and giving father. He always put our needs before his own, and he'd go above and beyond to help us and support us in any way that he could. Dad knew everyone. Concert tickets, he had connections. Silent auction prizes for our wedding social, I think his connections spanned across Canada. And very ironically, it was his connections tonight that actually helped plan this event. He worried about us a lot. If I had a headache, he would literally rush over to bring me the special Advil migraine that you can only get from the States. Anytime I traveled, it was customary for me to send him a text message saying that I had arrived safely. Sometimes when I drove to the south end of the city, I would text him to say that I had arrived safely. He always worried about his grand puppy, Rue, which is Jared and mine, our dog. And he never wanted her to be left alone. Like, he really didn't want her to be left alone for more than 2 hours at a time. So he'd always want to take care of her. And when my dad's back pain first started, which we'll talk a little bit more about, our dog Rue would sit with him for hours, and looking back, it's like she knew, and she wanted to take care of her Grandpa Jerry. As Auntie Debbie said, Dad was also a fixer. When an 18-year-old inexperienced DJ showed up at our wedding social, Dad immediately took charge, and he helped with the music, he made the announcements, and like always, he made sure everything was completely under control. Dad also made sure that Jared and I had the most beautiful wedding that we could have ever dreamed of. And some of my favorite memories from that day was walking down the stairs of my parents' house, and I was in my wedding dress, and he was at the bottom of the stairs, and the look on his face, he was so happy and so proud. We surprised everyone with a special choreographed father-daughter dance where he pulled out some Jerry moves. And I will never forget the beautiful speech that he gave at our wedding. He was such a great speaker. A memory I always will have and hold on to is that at our wedding he sang the song that he wrote for me when I was a baby. And I know how lucky I am to have had him walk me down the aisle. Dad's corny sense of humor always warmed my heart. Combined with his musical talents, he was always making up ridiculous jingles, doing impressions, and sending us hilarious Photoshop pictures. His sense of humor never faded, even during his last days. There's been a lot of ironic moments that have happened recently. While in the hospital under heavy doses of medication, he mumbled something to me about Joe Poplawski needing to go to Calgary to pick something up. And he was under a lot of medication, and not a lot of what he was saying was making sense. But I kid you not, 10 minutes later, who comes walking down the hallway? Joe Poplawski. He had no idea that Dad was there. He had just heard, I guess, that Dad was sick. It was just one of those completely ironic moments. And I have to say that even under all the heavy medication, Dad told Joe that all he wanted was a Grey Cup ring. Dad passed away just hours before the Labor Day Classic on Sunday morning. Not only did the Bombers wear JM on their helmets, Justin Medlock, another JM coincidentally, kicked the nail-biting field goal for the win. It's the first time in 11 years that the Bombers won the Labor Day Classic. And what's very ironic is that Dad was involved in setting up Justin Medlock's Kick for Kids, where the Blue Bombers donate money to Variety every time Justin kicked a field goal. And it was just perfect. I also recently found out that there was a 3.4 magnitude earthquake in Saskatchewan the day after the Labor Day win. Just wanted to thank Dad for that one. I know that he was very proud of me, and I hope he knows how much I love him and how proud I am of him. He truly left a legacy in this community, and it would be our privilege and our honor to continue the charitable work that he has committed his life to. And I want both Variety and the Never Alone Foundation to know that we're here and we're ready to help, and we want to continue on with his legacy. Dad, you are my mentor, my go-to, my rock. I'm not sure how to continue on without you in my life, but I'm so thankful for everything you have taught me and for the love and guidance that you have provided me and Bobby and Tara and Mom. And it breaks my heart that you were taken from us so soon, but my heart is so full to know that over your 58 years, you made such an impact in this community and in our lives. And it's been said to me a few times in the last couple days that it's not the amount of years that a man lives that matters, it's the amount of lives that he's touched. Do you want to say something?
I just want to say, on behalf of me and my sisters, we love you, we miss you, we'll never forget you, and you'll always be in our hearts.
As many of you know, my dad and I worked together for 7 years at the football club. We shared something really special. We spent countless hours together in the early morning car rides, which he would always fall asleep, so I'd have to drive to work most of the time. And the late night drive homes after game days, hearing him swear about how bad the Bombers had lost that night. We were together a lot, and what was even more odd to me was that Dad was actually my boss. And the weirdest part was I had to refer to him as Jerry, not Dad in the office, and that was a little weird. The Bomber crew was a special one. We were all a family, and he loved each and every one of you and had special relationships with all of you, from the office staff to the players on and off the field. Watching my dad doing what he loved was something I don't think I can really put into words. Seeing how he interacted with everyone was truly something special. His office door was always open for a laugh or a silly, corny joke, and he genuinely cared about how people were doing. Most recently with his time with Variety, I was lucky enough to spend a lot of time with him at the events. To my dad, it was all about the kids, about making them happy and making them smile. He poured his heart and soul into everything he did, and his passion is something I can't explain. Music, as mentioned tonight, and performing was a big part of my dad's life and a big reason why my brother Bobby and I got into singing and playing. Dad on the keyboard, Bobby on guitar or drums, and Dad always yelling at me that I wasn't singing it properly. Finally, I decided to give up the vocals and let Dad handle it, since he was the professional after all, which turned into late night jam sessions with my brother Bobby and my dad. Anything from the Beatles to Metallica, to actually even writing some of their own music. It was a very special bond my brother and my dad shared. This past November, I got to do the one thing I always wanted to do with my dad, was musical theater. He choreographed Fiddler on the Roof, a musical I was in, and being able to be involved with him in that was something special, and I'm thankful we were able to do that together. Dad was always our #1 supporter. From Kaylee's dance recitals to Bobby's hockey games to my musical theater shows, he was always there front row center cheering us on. In March of 2015, I made the decision to leave the football club and start working with the Goldeyes. Since working there since I was 15, I was beyond scared to leave. But who was right there in my corner supporting me all the way? My dad. He loves seeing me enjoy what I do. I know he was happy I stayed in sports because he would not stop coming up with marketing schemes, slogans, and on-field promotions. After hearing about my dad's diagnosis with cancer, I was actually on the road with the team, and I hopped on the fastest airplane I could, and when I got to the hospital, all I wanted to do was give my dad a big hug. And typical Jerry, what's the first thing he said? "How the heck did you guys lose 18-2 last night?" The players and staff showed an outpouring of love after my dad's passing, from putting his initials on the pitcher's mound to having some of the players put JM on their wristbands and JM on their helmets, to actually even dedicating their win to him. I cannot thank my Goldeyes family enough for all their continued love and support. Most of you know Dad was a texter. He loved texting, he loved emailing. When we got him on the iPhone bandwagon, he would not stop downloading apps, funny face apps, funny voice apps, and blew up mine and Kaylee's and Bobby's phone and even Mom's emails, sending us all these ridiculous things. The biggest pain in my butt was LinkedIn. He was on it and he pretended like he knew what he was doing, but let me tell you, he didn't. I would get numerous emails or numerous text messages throughout the day saying, "Tara, put this on my LinkedIn, please." I said, "Okay, Dad, I'm busy now, I'll do it later." 5 minutes later, "Tara, it's not on my LinkedIn, where is it?" I said, "Dad, you just need to copy and paste the link, you can do this." "Tara, no, I need it on my LinkedIn now, can you paste it on my LinkedIn?" Twitter and Facebook, we couldn't even get him on that. He had no idea how that even all worked. My dad was my rock, my best friend, my biggest supporter, and my #1 fan. Thank you. Dad, I hope to be half the person you were, and I'll continue to make you proud. A lot of news articles have talked about our dad's battle with cancer, when in reality, our dad wasn't even given the opportunity to fight. Back pain forced Dad to take a leave from work in May. Specialists after specialists couldn't figure out why Dad was in so much pain. It wasn't until August 24th we heard it might be cancer. 11 days later, our dad was gone. It all happened too quickly, and we are all still in shock. Our families want to thank Dr. Simon Treppel, Dr. Harvey Chochinov, and Dr. Hillel Summer for their assistance in navigating the healthcare system and trying to get our dad the help he needed. We are grateful for all of you. Dad was an amazingly creative guy and put together many slogans during his time with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and Variety. One of his favorites, which Jim actually mentioned, that we always heard in the Maslowsky household, Blue Bomber football doesn't last 4 quarters. It lasts a lifetime. Well, Jerry Maslowsky doesn't last 58 years. His legacy will last a lifetime.
Glad they left the Kleenex up here. The Maslowsky family would like to thank Dwight Iwan, who has produced a video tribute to Mazman. That's another name we had for him. Mazman, Jerry Maz. Enjoy this tribute to Jerry Maslowsky.
Though your heart is aching, smile even though it's breaking. When there are clouds in the sky, you'll get by. If you smile through your fear and sorrow, smile and maybe tomorrow you'll see the sun come shining through for you.
Such talent is here. I know it. Well, here's one that we're about to introduce right now. His name's Jerry Maslowsky, and you're going to enjoy it.
Every honeybee fills with jealousy when they see you out with me. Oh, I don't blame them, goodness knows. A honeysuckle rose.
If you ever find yourself stuck in the middle of the sea, I'll sail the world to find you. If you ever find yourself lost in the dark and you can't see, I'll be the light to guide you. Find out what we're made of when we are called to help our friends in need. You can count on me like 1, 2, 3, I'll be there. And I know when I need it, I can count on you like 4, 3, 2, and you'll be there. 'Cause that's what friends are supposed to do, oh yeah. Ooh, ooh, yeah, yeah. If you're tossing and you're turning and you just can't fall asleep, I'll sing a song beside you. And if you ever forget how much you really mean to me, every day I will remind you. Oh, find out what we're made of when we are called to help our friends in need. You can count on me like 1, 2, 3, I'll be there. And I know when I need what friends are supposed to do, oh yeah. You'll always have my shoulder when you cry. I'll never let go, never say goodbye. You can't count on me like 1, 2, 3, I'll be there. And I know when I need it, I can count on you like 4, 3, 2, and you'll be there. 'Cause that's what friends are supposed to do, oh yeah. You can count on me 'cause I can count on you.
I've heard Maslowsky. The name is Maslowsky.
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 Maslowsky. Please get our last name right. Well, they've called me Kenny.
And they called Kenny Jerry. I've got another. You're almost as good as your brother.
No.
Brother.
Gee, I gotta love her, but please get our last name right.
Maslowsky.
If I win, I should do the happy.
Hi, I've accepted Daeninck Campbell's ALS ice cold bucket on my head. But I nominate the following: Stefan Kalinchuk of the BC Lions, Jamie Seguin of the Calgary Stampeders, but one of my dearest nephews who called me Uncle Jerry, Arash Madani. Those three are very used to having lots of ice, not on them, but in a drink. Woo, baby!
Are you nuts? How does it all bloom? Honey, what color is this? That's white. The dress is not blue. It's white and gold. I can't. Doesn't feel right.
That was something. That was awesome.
Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas!
Taking care of business every day. Taking care of business every way. We be taking care of business. It's all mine. Taking care of business and working overtime.
The drum roll, please. Variety has raised $425,000 net. Thank you. God bless you.
You're simply the best. Better than all the rest. Better than
again, the Maslowsky family. Yeah, that was great, wasn't it? Chris and the kids would like to thank Dwight Iwan for the work he put into putting that fabulous video tribute together, and they'd like to thank everyone for coming tonight. Jerry Maz is gone, but to those of us who knew him well, he will never be forgotten. And we invite you to stay around and visit if you so choose afterwards. And we're going to leave you with Jerry singing one of his favorite songs.
Every honeybee fills with jealousy when they see you out with me. Oh, I don't blame them, goodness knows. A honeysuckle rose. When you're passing by, flowers droop and sigh, and I know the reason why. Your confection, goodness knows. A honeysuckle rose. Don't buy sugar, you just have to touch my cup. Well, you're my sugar, so sweet when you stir it up. Oh, when I'm taking sips from your tasty lips, seems the honey filling drips. Oh, your confection, goodness knows, you're my honeysuckle rose. Every honeybee fills with jealousy when they see you out with me. Oh, I don't blame them, goodness knows. A honeysuckle rose. When you're passing by, flowers droop and sigh, and I know the reason why. Your confection, goodness knows, you're my honeysuckle rose. I said don't buy sugar, you just have to touch my cup. Well, you're my sugar, so sweet when you stir it up. Oh, when I'm taking sips from your tasty lips, seems the honey fairly drips. Your confection, goodness knows, you're my honeysuckle rose.
Coffees, we do have dainties, so please help yourselves. The bar is open. Thank you on behalf of my family. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you.